Karibu sana to the hot seat of the situation.
Asante.
It's good to have you here.
Yes, it is great to be here.
You're here so we can talk about brutality in the country. So we can talk about victims who appear to have been forgotten.
Yes.
You'll tell us who those people are, who these forgotten victims are. But first, City gives you the day's proverb. This week and last week and probably next week as well, you said?
Next week, yes.
Okay.
We'll be looking at landlocked countries in Africa, and our proverbs will be from landlocked countries in Africa.
Okay.
The other week, before last week, we're looking at island nations of Africa.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. This week the proverbs are from?
The Republic of Botswana.
Botswana.
I almost said kingdom. There's no king there. It's president. Okay.
I thought we were still in Burundi.
Burundi was last week.
Burundi, yes, Burundi was the last one. Today, they have a president, by the way.
Okay.
Oh?
What's his name?
Oh, I thought you were asking.
You.
Don't ask.
Aha. Mogwetsi Masisi.
Mogwetsi Matiti.
Yes. Then there's a vice president called Slamba Songwane.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's a VP.
That's the VP.
Right.
Then from VP, they come to National Assembly Speaker.
Mm-hmm.
That guy is called Fandu Selemani.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, my friend, this continent has lovely names. There are countries where a name is a compound word. You think there's it's like 3 words put together. It's just one name.
That's one name.
Yes. The proverb.
Yes.
To give away is to make provision for the future.
Okay.
To give away is to make provision for the future.
Yes.
Okay. When we share, we receive more. To give away is to make provision for the future.
Yes.
Yeah, when it's like planting. You give away, in future you will harvest.
So the encouragement here is giveaway.
Panda mbegu.
Panda mbegu. Kadiri twedi. Okay. Redempter, who are these forgotten victims?
It is very unfortunate. Every cycle, I think of election, we have these Kenyans who are dissatisfied. They go and make some noise. They are meted with violence. People talk about it for a while. The media rush is there. Picks a few who are going to be the poster of that violation. Then, in most likely, it's almost a month, we move on to the next thing. So for me particularly, it's victims of police brutality. And now we are having a new trend where we had a massacre in Kilifi County. And the year before that, is it the same year, we had Maandamano, where we had 70 victims. And then come 2024. And this is a crazy one because you have bodies that have no story. And Kenyans slowly become statistics. We are talking about quarry, 40 bodies. Are they really 40? So the next day, sensationalism. There's someone who's been caught. Then it's debunked. The guy says, no, I'm not the one. And the story dies. So it's like a cycle where we have crazy inhuman numbers.
Why do we call them forgotten?
They are forgotten because I had shared in another platform and an X space that there's a spiral. That when these atrocities happen, there seems to be a spiral. And the spiral is, let's all get there, get outraged, let's write stories about it. Then let's get to the root cause of it, matters under investigation. And then in this the 2 particular cases are followed for almost a year. We need DNA to know who these people are. And 1 year down the line, no DNA. And so I'm not even apologizing for being very loud and saying it is an injustice to exhume people from our forests. Put them in a container for 1 year. And then say, you know what, we are wrapping this up. There's a likelihood we'll have mass graves. And we are looking at the same place we got them from. Because this DNA thing is never going to happen. We've tried out of 453, we have managed 34. The rest,
We don't know who they are.
We don't know who they are.
Is that what the police and the Interior Ministry have said about Shakahola?
Maybe I need to start at the beginning, because I was interested in coming to have to rebuttal what Reverend Muteva presented. Although he was not the task force for going to find out why, he was the one to find out how religious organizations can be controlled.
Yep.
And so for me, because I'm a storyteller, the story begins that in March 2023, the CS, the Interior, is breathing fire. How can one man be responsible for these atrocities? We will make sure this man never sees the light of day again. Forgets he's a lawyer, he's a teacher of law, and everyone is saying, how can you give your own extrajudicial verdict? June 2024, same thing happens. Now this time there's nobody you can pinpoint. How dare you be responsible for, is it 24, is it 40, is it 60? So the most likely scenario why they get forgotten is they are a story of shame, of how could we feel so greatly as a society that we have people, we cannot explain how they got there, how they died, who do we blame? So for me, I'm not apologizing to the CS for the same fire he was breathing when it was one man. He was saying, this man. Now you should tell us in 2024, who do we breathe that fire? For now, bodies that were in gunny bags and in very inhuman states, and nobody up to now knows the number.
And that's what they just become. They just become bodies.
Statistics.
There are no names attached to them.
Yes.
So there's no story behind. Because when you don't have a name, you don't have a person, you cannot say that this is so-and-so that we have actually exhumed from this ground in Shakahola.
Yes.
And this is how they ended up here.
Yes.
This is where they came from.
Yes.
These are the family members. These are the friends. This is where they went to school, or where they traded, where they lived. There's no story attached to them.
Yes.
They're just a body.
Yes.
And so you can forget them because they're just a body.
You turn Kenyans into statistics.
But then, Redempter, on the other side, if there's somebody who's missing from a community, does that community forget them as well?
No.
Do we hear stories from communities of, we had a person called Mombi. And Mombi was this and the other. Mombi is a sister. Mombi is an auntie. Mombi is a daughter. Mombi was a classmate. Mombi was a churchmate. Mombi was a business mate. Mombi was somebody.
Yes. Yes.
Why does the community forget Mombi? Because we can say the state is trying as much as possible to reduce the story of Mombi. But why does the community where Mombi came from, where Mombi disappeared from?
The community never ever forgets. Mothers especially never ever forget. In my community, the Kamba people, if you meet a woman in her 70s, 80s, and you ask, how many children do you have? That woman will tell you, in Kikamba, masia makwane, that
Uza wangu.
But my living children are.
Right.
Never ever forgets the one that died at
I have given
month.
birth 7 times.
Yes.
But I have 5 children.
Yes. Can even break it down to you and tell you 2 of them died as infants. She even goes to tell you the story of the ones that are missing, and takes as much time to talk about the ones that are missing as she would the ones that are living. And because, let me say, because of sub judice, when I talk about this case that I've investigated for 1 year, is that there's a narrative that came out that dehumanized these people or shamed them. The same thing I'm seeing in 2024, where you call Kenyans protesters, and you use the words, they died. They didn't die. They were killed. There's nobody who had a heart condition and went to the streets and collapsed. We don't have that story. We just know they were killed because there were bullets. So for me, the containing of the narrative, we contain the narrative because someone has taken an oath to protect the Constitution, and in that Constitution is the right to life and is protecting of life. I do not think out of 247 families, around 250 families out of the cases in Shakahola, people went to great lengths to go and do what they were told to do. Present yourself, tell your story. And I had shared the spiral of how these stories, the spiral of silence that makes people statistics.
Okay, I think it's important in Redempter. Let's talk Shakahola, okay?
Okay.
You have done a bit of groundwork of following up what's happened in Shakahola since March last year to present.
Yes.
Since the exhumations began, since people started flocking into Kilifi and saying, we think that our loved one is here.
Yes.
Since the post-mortem was being conducted, all the way up to present.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's start with bodies are found in Shakahola. It's declared a security zone. A security operation begins.
Yes.
What's happened since then?
The magnitude of the case starts to grow. At first, it's a free-for-all show. We see YouTubers running there to take videos. Family members very desperate, searching with their own hands, making paths, fiekering the roads.
Yep.
And now we are getting all these. It's unbelievable, really. Then after a while, it's, hey, media,
get out
of here.
This is a security zone.
Yes. Oh, and human rights organizations, thank you for your good work. But leave it to us from this point on.
Okay.
So because of the nature of my, I do victim advocacy from 2017. And in 2017, I wanted to document what a family goes through from the day your child is shot in Mathare. How long does it take? So when Shakahola happened, as a writer and as a victim's advocacy, I said, I will die on this hill as a writer, documenting the stories. Because so that what has been happening all these years, people die and they are turned into reports. There are very many reports. 2023, the killings that happened because of maandamano, there are reports. There are very many good organizations with reports. So the difference that I bring to this is I want to tell the stories.
Tell us a story.
I want the impact of this particular incident on the family. But when you're talking about 400 people, that really, for me, I document the impact in society. Because the numbers are just too great for you to say this family has a life.
Let's start. Do you have a story? Tell us a story or two.
Yes.
Because you said you spoke to family members.
Yes.
Over 200 families.
They've been clustered into around 250 families.
Around 250 families,
yes,
right?
Yes.
That have gone there.
Yes.
And how are they clustered? How, first of all, are they... When somebody was going to Shakahola and saying, I think my sister, my wife, my daughter, my brother, my uncle is here.
Yes.
What were they being asked?
To give the story, the background. When was your person... Did you consider them missing? What was the last time you spoke to them? And then how are you related to this person? So some people would go, like a brother would go and be told, no, we would prefer a mother to come.
Okay.
So a mother would be brought. So I'll give you an example of a story. A 70-year-old woman, the daughter is leaving to go and buy land in Kadhonzweni. And...
living where?
Living Kitui.
Okay.
To go to Kadhonzweni. And
Kadhonzweni is in Makueni.
Is in Makueni, yes. And it's believable because there's a brother who does kibaruas in that area. The day they are leaving, they actually pack them off. They say, well, we've sold the property, we have sold the home, but you can take the mabatis, you can take the furniture, and you go to Kadhonzweni, and tukifika utatuambia. And then the case breaks, and you're looking at the last time I spoke to this person was just during this incident. So you arrive and you're told you're cancelled, you go through counselling, then your DNA is taken, you're given a number, and you're told don't call us, we will call you. And a year goes by, and all you can rely on is KTN News Today will tell us.
You're telling us the story of this. How old is this woman?
70.
So the 70-year-old woman.
She is missing 6 of her family members.
These are the ones who moved from Kitui
to Kadhonzweni.
to Kadhonzweni.
Yes.
Did they ever arrive in Kadhonzweni? What does she know?
Now you start to retrace the steps and realize you never saw a picture of a land they moved to. You stopped hearing from them. So there was never you send people to Kadhonzweni.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very big area. Go and ask around. See a family that came here. Because you're in shock. You're not believing that your people could be that story that is coming from Kilifi. So that story...
How long had they been missing before this woman then got her alarm bells ringing?
Never missing, because they were in touch. There was a chama to be paid. They paid for the chama while they were in Kadhonzweni. So you don't...
So they were in communication?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What triggered her to go to...
The story breaks when you realize...
people...
Yes.
And I want you to tell, because you're telling us this story of this one as a story, right?
Yes.
After hearing stories of bodies that are being exhumed in Kilifi,
yes,
and they're related to some religious beliefs,
yes,
what triggered this woman to think that her family could be among those in Kilifi?
Because there's a relative now who comes in the picture, who is the one who is adversely mentioned and has survived, and says, yes, we were together, and no, there was no Kadhonzweni, but I do not know where they are, and sticks to that story.
Mm-hmm.
That was a recurring theme of survivors saying, I don't know what happened.
They don't know what happened. They are survivors.
Yes.
So this thing that they don't know, what exactly is it that
where
they don't know?
Where the other family members are.
They came together with these people.
Yes.
And there is no explanation as to when they came together and they got there, what happened.
Yes.
There's no explanation.
There's no explanation.
Well, you heard the story. So is it no explanation in that they seem to be shell-shocked and they don't know what is happening around them? Mm-hmm. Or it's something they'd rather not talk about?
It's something they'd rather not talk about. It seems to be a vow of silence. We are never going to say what happened there.
Because they're survivors, they believed what they were doing. They're so refusing to share more information.
Yes.
All right. So this elderly woman then goes there and she reports and says, I suspect that my family members could be in these grounds.
Yes.
Who does she talk to? Is she talking to police?
Yes.
Is she talking to Red Cross,
yes.
Medics? Who is she?
There's a whole system, very organized, very
okay.
well organized, where you report to this desk, then you're handed over to these officers, then they explain what the DNA process is like. Then first they do the history taking, then they do the DNA testing. And then they give you a piece of paper, and then they tell you to now go and report officially to the station that your person is missing.
So they take your DNA sample?
Yes.
And they keep it?
Yes.
Okay. And so after you then go and officially report, what was she told?
We will now just wait.
So go back home?
Go back home.
We'll be in touch.
We'll be in touch. Then the next thing you see is a task force by the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So these ones are going to tell Kenyans what happened.
Mm-hmm.
As all these things are supposed to be going on in the same time. The rescue is still going on, so there's a lot of hope. People really do have a lot of hope that maybe mine escaped, maybe they were really in Kadhonzweni. So your best bet is that DNA result. Then find other survivors and ask them, do you know if you saw this person? Actually, when I started the story, I said there was no order when this happened. And so there was a possibility the surviving children could be shown pictures. Did you see this one? Did you see this one? Did you see this one? The reason why I focused on the human aspect of his story and just tell me your story was because I knew when I followed the official way of verify the missing people, how many people are missing, the data was protected by law.
Yeah.
So the only chance of us matching is we have 400 bodies. How many people have reported their people missing? So if you rely on the media is more likely to get the figures at 600. So you're like, okay, so 600 tutatoa kwa hii hesabu. So your best bet is the system will work for you. They took your DNA after 2 months. A few would call and say, any news? So finally they were like, okay, they had some DNA results that are out, and they are about only matched 34.
Our guest this morning is the Redempter Mwikali. She's a human rights defender. She's here to talk about the forgotten victims. And there are many forgotten victims, post-election violence. There are many that are forgotten. In every election cycle, there is violence in many aspects of our society where people just die and they appear to be forgotten. Bodies showing up in rivers, in dams. All these are victims. Who are they? Redempter, let's focus on this over 400 bodies that have been exhumed in Shakahola.
Yes.
And not much has been pieced together about this. Yes. But you said, you will die on this hill. You will go and speak to the people who have gone to Shakahola and said, my person is missing and I suspect that they are here. Given us an example of this 70-year-old woman. Give us another example of a family that is missing or somebody that is looking for their loved one. And what's the story? Let's not forget then the person who is missing.
Okay. So because of talking to one person, they end up knowing that there's someone called Redempter who seems to care about our stories. So you get to know another one, then the other one. And so I discovered there are two kinds of families here. There's one that is vocal. There's the one that is living with the stigma. And so I want to compare even those two families. So there's this one family man who is considered the whistleblower. And his story is out there and he's giving interviews. He will not stop talking about it to any media that shows up in Kilifi that wants to know the story. So he becomes the poster of this massacre. And he's in every media until he's told, hey, tone down. And his case
told by who?
The authorities.
Okay.
Tone down. And so he's unrelenting. He goes in front of the Senate. He says, my grandchildren are missing. I reported. I got an order to have an exhumation. That's how the story broke. And he keeps going until out of the 34 bodies that were matched, 5 belong to his family members. And again, it's the biggest covered story. And the world has seen that bodies have been matched. And the day that the burial is happening, media is from all over the world are there because they've been following this one story. And so that man gets a semblance of closure. And so my 70-year-old woman, on the other hand, showed up in Malindi once, never came back, never got a single call. And now it gets to a point where I don't want to call these family members. Because every time they see my call, they'll think I have some news. And while I was doing this, I decided to walk with one young man who was missing his mother, his brother, 6 family members again. And I got in a lot of trouble because every media person that comes to that town is known. But there's this woman that nobody knows about who ends up attending a burial. And I get a summon. Who are you? I'm a storyteller.
Who summoned you?
The department that investigates homicide. And actually they asked me if I'll ever tell this story. And I told them, yes, I'll sing like a canary when I get the opportunity to. And it was shocking that you are questioned for caring about the impact of these 2 families. And so the assumption is because a lot of the storytellers, the media, will come and tell the story. I am skilled. It's a talent for me to write stories. So I don't have those rules that journalists have. To tell the story, don't live in the story. So I kind of end up living in the stories because I'm attending burials and I'm the contact person of this person. So when I'm told, who are you? I actually say I'm a minister without portfolio. Actually, now the spiritual side of I am doing psychosocial, spiritual support to these families. Why? Why would you do that? Who has sent you? Who is paying you? Why do you want? And so that's why I'm speaking up now about forgotten victims, because the reason why.
Sorry, I didn't get that. So the police called you because you were attending burials.
Yes, I attended one burial that now came to their radar.
Whose burial?
A victim of Shakahola.
One of the 34?
One of the 34.
One of the 34 matched bodies.
Yes.
Why did you stand out?
On that particular day, I told you now, comparing the families, is this one is all over media and this one is not on the media. And so when I come, I say I'm doing victims advocacy. I actually report on the desk and I tell the family member, do not say I'm your relative. Say I'm here to give you support as you do this, because you're by yourself. A 30-year-old man is a very young man and is tasked with this responsibility. So you have asked me why I stood out.
Whose body was he picking?
His mother's. And he had been calling me once we got connected. He had been calling me for that 1 year. And it got to a point he said, I don't even want to know about the others, just want my mother. So very respectful young man calls me and says, Madam, I got the report they found my mother among the matched bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, is anyone working with you on this one? He says, it's just me. We can't even afford to come to Malindi because we are all the way in Hola. So I say, I'll be here. And so the day I'm told there's a vehicle that is going to take him to Hola, I just think, well, maybe a good Samaritan gave him the vehicle. So I say, I'll escort you. I'll bury this woman because I've gotten to know her story. I know her story very well. And she was a lay pastor and all those, and she has this number of children. So let me get a ride. Unbeknownst to me, that vehicle belongs to the government. And I kind of find out at the last minute, but
Did he know?
Yes. He told me it's a private arrangement.
Okay.
So we are struggling to buy a coffin, Eric. The money is not even enough. So it's just me, this young man, and a relative, an older man. Because I said, do not come to Malindi alone. Just come with somebody. This is not easy. And the day before, we are buying a coffin and the money is not enough. And so I'm like, I always tell the families I support that I don't give monetary support. I'm a lone ranger. I walk telling stories of life-changing events and I don't give money. So what do? The person selling us a coffin says, oh, there is a community here, a welfare community for people from that part of the town. Maybe I can give you the number. And I say, explain. I say, well, this family needs support. Well wishers, can you chip in? And I give them the phone and they talk their language. So the next day, when now the money is still not enough, the coffin is supposed to be delivered, I am aware now you asked me why did I stand out?
Yes.
So they're speaking their language, I'm not speaking their language, and I'm making a call, say, did you find can you top up what we have? Because we need this to be delivered. So that's when I get notice. But at the reporting desk, I actually told the officer I do victim advocacy. I'm here to investigate the impact of this and how someone just goes through such a life-changing event.
The thing I've always found puzzling about this Shakahola story is how could so many people depart from a life they lived, make this journey, which was to mark the end of their lives, in such large numbers?
Yeah.
How were they contacted? How did they get to hear of this place? What is it? Is the story the same? Did they all hear the same message? Were they all pursuing the same? There are those who say they had been informed there was cheap land that could be bought. There are others who are going on a pilgrimage. What is it?
For any crime, if you ever report crime, the people look at the criminal and others choose to look at victimology. I decided I was going to focus on victimology.
So tell us the story of this mother of a 30-year-old man from Hola.
Yes.
Because you say you had studied her, you knew her story. Okay. So what's her story? Where did she come from? How did she end up in Shakahola?
She went, she has found a new church. She's not from that church originally.
Okay.
She's introduced by her children. And she likes the teachings. But more so...
Where did she live? She lived in Hola.
Yes, the victimology, the focus of the victimology is also 2020, COVID, conspiracy theories. distrust for government, huduma number. So you already have a clique that is there because of conspiracy theories. They don't believe they should get into the system of the mark of the beast. So already that's a target audience.
So that's why this woman moved from her church to a new church?
There was something that message attracted them.
So there was a doomsday message.
Yes.
And this church was in Hola?
But at a very, no, there were branches, yes, all over the country.
So I want you to tell us the story of this woman. I mean,
yes. You don't want all the other stories.
No, this woman's story exemplifies.
Because it tells the story of the
victimology.
Yes,
the victimology.
Exactly.
Redempter, what we are trying to do is go by what you're saying. Let's not forget the victims. Let's not just call victims numbers.
Yes.
Or say woman.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So let's tell this. Who is this woman?
Yes.
Whose story you say you studied so well?
Yes.
She lived in Hola.
Yes.
She belonged to a certain church.
Yes.
She was a lay
minister
in her original church.
Yes.
So how does she move from that church to this other ministry? What happens? How does that message get to her?
There's a contact. There's a church plant in our community of that church in Malindi.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how she ends up now joining and told, come, Kanisa Jangwani message is preached. And so they go, and it's all nice at the beginning. It's all nice at the beginning. And Eric, you have to understand, like I've said, because of prejudice, I wanted to explain more of why they are forgotten than this particular story because of subjudice. Some of these people are either maybe could be witnesses, although in this particular case, I don't think anyone.
There's no case against this woman.
Yes, so she goes there because her children have convinced her son has convinced her that this is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
We will be farming. We will have a good life. And then once you're there, the doomsday now comes in while you're inside there. So in a nutshell, I have shared a document with you that is 1 page from the Senate report and 35 pages from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Those two reports then explain that these people are all there for different reasons. Some were there willingly, some were there to buy land, some believed in that doomsday, some were ensnared. So ni mtego that got waliokuwemo na wasiokuwemo.
You said that this lady was a lay preacher.
Yes.
Now, you also said that the tentacles of this particular organization was all over.
Yes.
So, from the story you summed up, how did she get to hear of this place and this person?
Her son is already inside.
And the same son
Yes.
that you were helping bury the mother?
No, another son. This young man is looking for 6 family members. That's her mother, her brother, the wife, and 3 children.
Who'd gone there before the other?
The son.
Okay. So this young man's brother had gone there.
Yes.
And he's also one of the reasons why now the mother also joined.
Yes.
But the message that the mother was given, according to this man that you talked to, is that you come here, there is plenty of land.
Yes.
And it's a community of the faithful.
Yes. We are linking ourselves from these Babylonians, this
system.
System. We will never get their job. We will not be in their mark of the beast thing. So that attracted a group. There's a group I've told you about, Kadonzweni, that came purely to buy land. They are not joined the faith. So for me, studying the victimology helps me get this. So because you see, the forest has been conned off. But out of those forests, people pennied out of that forest. And the story is in the community. And so that's my focus. But why I came here for forgotten victims is the spiral is once those bodies are not given back to the community, then no media person will find these people. They get into rabbit holes. So it will be someone who is determined in all the victims' advocacy cases of violations in this country. It's a few lone even journalists who decide I'm sticking with this story from beginning up to the end.
How many of such stories do you have?
The one I'm comfortable to talk about is 2017, Stephanie Mora, because that one I documented from the day The other party, ODM, went to the site, said, we will make sure you get compensation, to now just listening to what's going on. There's an inquiry, IPO has taken over, and then you end up going to court 40 times. 40 times to just know if that child was shot by a police or not. And after 40 visits, it's declared, yes, the police shot this girl, but because of the blue code of silence, the police officers are not willing to out each other. So it's a police, yes, we confirm that bullet came from the police. And then now you have to go and sue the state. And so from 2017 to now, then you get to see why victims get forgotten. It's lost.
I'm not saying, Redempter, I'm sorry, you're not telling the story. You want to tell the story, but you're not telling the story. Right? And even people are wondering, so what's the story?
The story is victims.
You don't want us to forget the victims.
Yes.
So tell their story.
So the story
if you have documented the story.
Yes. So this story is that you work with the family and say, I'll make sure your child is not forgotten. So let's go through the steps of making sure this story stays alive. So what happens is, once the media comes, a big story, I was telling you the spiral of how these victims get forgotten. When the story breaks, we
get that.
The media
and then there are the lone rangers like Redempter, who continue with the story.
So yes.
Because media came, media picked the highlights, and media left because the media went to the next story.
Yes.
But Redempter stayed.
Yes.
Now Redempter is here.
Yes.
And media.
Yes.
She stayed.
Yes.
Let her tell the story then.
Let me give it a twist. Once upon a time, there was a lady called Grace. She was a lay pastor in a small village in Hola. Because her son was a believer, her son convinced her to join the faith that he belonged to. The message appealed to her. This is a message that appealed to very many people across the country, and this was because this particular church had branches or tentacles right across. Before she joined this church, she was this sort of person. She had this number of children. She had this number of relatives. And the aspiration of even this son, according to the stories you've been told by the other brother, was this. A picture is painted of the family before the matriarch moves over. Then she disappears, and the son wants to find out. It's family members. Now, the story of this lady leaving Hola is represented by the many bodies of people who have been identified and who haven't been identified.
Yes.
Now, the horror behind the story, just the sheer numbers.
Yes.
But worse still, the apathy that now we feel and we have, or is it resignation? Or is it that it's too much to understand or too much to bear? So here we are.
Yes.
And just when you're beginning to get a hang of it, some other tragedy occurs.
Yes.
But this falls into a pattern because we've had a long history of such tragedies. Either bodies were being found in rivers.
Yes.
Now we found some in a quarry.
Yes.
Some were shot during protests.
Yes. Now you're getting it.
No, I'm telling you the story. I am also a storyteller.
Yes.
The two of us are storytellers. You see,
That's how we'd like the story.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So that you can get to feel and move with the journey of this woman coming from Hola and the family. This young man, he's alone.
Yes.
He's alone. He's come back from Hola to come and pick the body of his mother.
Yes.
But he's still waiting to be told about his brother, his sister-in-law, and his nephews and nieces.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so we walk through all these six people, through the eyes, the ears, the feelings, the emotions of this 30-year-old young man.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we don't forget that it's not just, he has not just lost somebody, he has lost a mother, he has lost a brother. And this is who they were. You don't have to give us the names, but this is who they are.
Yes, true.
So we get to know that it's, when you hear 400 bodies have been exhumed and we are moving into phase 4, phase 5 of exhumation process, and then Johansen Odor flies into Kilifi, he conducts postmortems, he does a report, he comes back, he goes to the next area. The person who's left to tell that story is Redempter.
Yes.
And the reason why we invited you here is so that you can then amplify that story.
Yes.
That it's not, 400 is not a number.
There are people.
400.
they are individuals one by one, with family members, with the story, with the history, with hopes, with aspirations. They make up this number of 400.
250 families, that's a big village.
Yes, it impacts society in a big way because Kenyan families, 200 people could be 10,000 people who are connected to this story.
Even more.
Yes.
Even more. If you look at our numbers in terms of our population, our numbers in terms of how we are interconnected through relatives, the number could be much, much, much larger.
Yes.
But forgotten, really, is it that we forget? Or is it that we'd rather not remember? It's not, the two are not the same thing.
Yes, we'd rather not. We'd rather sweep it under the carpets and say we did what we could. We gave the results. We have we have documentaries coming out of this saying breaking down, say 4 out of 53. This, and that's why it gave you the comparison of that man who was unrelenting in amplifying his story, ended up being handed. The bodies were matched.
Yeah.
So that tells you the forgottenness. If you,
so he can stop talking.
I guess.
And because he got his kin, he's going to bury them. He's no longer in the news.
Yes.
So he has moved out of the news cycle. The other 249 families are somewhere.
Yes, asking for closure.
They're waiting for their call to come and tell them we identified your body. DNA, if they've already given samples, and if indeed their family members are missing, then the government has two things to do. Either match the DNA. DNA is a science that is readily available. Match the DNA of these 400 bodies with the victims that you have. And if those people are not there, and you've identified, you've even sent police to the villages and found out that actually, yes, this person was reported as missing. And it's true, they are missing. Then produce them. Because that's the job of the police. If the family has come and said, we have a missing relative, it's the job of the police to then investigate. So where is this person? Where did they go to? Did they leave the country? Are they in the country? Are they in another part of the country? Did they change their identity? Were they running away from something? There has to be something. But the people need answers.
Yes.
And those answers are the ones that are not forthcoming.
Yes. And because of the stigma of such a story, the reporting then fizzles out. Because they know the results will be.
But does it fizzle out? The family members who are alive and have lost dear ones, do they really ever forget? It's those of us who consider it news. You see, when someone dies, for the people who are bereaved, it is not news.
It is very personal.
Yes, it is. And it's painfully personal.
Tragic.
It's tragedy.
And it stays for years.
And when it's such a large number, it's a tragedy for the nation.
Yes. Exactly. And that's why I'm saying, for me, the forgotten victims then amplify the trauma that Kenyans face. So that if you have pockets of people in Kisumu in 2023, you have pockets of people from all over the country in 2023, 400. Then you have quarry. Then you have now bodies in city mortuary that nobody is saying who do they belong to. So it's you end up, these forgotten victims impact all of us directly
as
or
a
indirectly.
society.
Yes.
Redempter, thank you for coming. Redempter Mwikali is a human rights defender. We're talking about the forgotten victims' brutality in Kenya.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.